The door creaked open and every head in the room turned. Dust floated in thin sunbeams cutting across the air. And there she was, boots scuffed, uniform torn, her face streaked with dirt and something darker, like dried blood. The briefing room went silent. Even the hum of the projector seemed to die. She didn't salute, didn't even speak. She just stood there, breathing hard, eyes locked on the colonel at the far end of the table. He stared back, frozen for half a heartbeat, then slowly stood and whispered her call sign, Raven. The name sliced through the silence like a knife. No one moved. The young recruits glanced at one another, whispering questions under their breath. Raven had been gone for 7 months, declared KIA in northern Syria. The last anyone heard, her chopper had gone down after a blackout mission. There was no wreckage found, no body, and yet here she was, alive, standing in front of them as if she'd just crawled out of a grave. The colonel's jaw tightened. "Everyone out," he ordered. Chairs scraped back, boots thudded across the concrete floor, and within seconds, only 2 people remained, Raven and the colonel. He walked toward her slowly, eyes scanning every mark on her uniform, the strange patches of sand that didn't look like any desert he'd seen before. "Where have you been?" he asked. She swallowed, voice low and hoarse. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." He crossed his arms. "Try me." Raven hesitated, glancing toward the door. Then she said softly, "The mission wasn't what they told us. There was something buried out there. Not intel, not weapons, something else." The colonel's brows furrowed. "You're telling me the crash wasn't an accident," she finished. "We were targeted by something that wasn't supposed to exist." He stared at her, measuring every word. Raven had always been precise, never one for tall tales. But there was something in her eyes now, a flicker of fear he had never seen, even in the middle of gunfire. He motioned her to sit. "Start from the beginning." She sat, rubbing her hands together, flakes of dried mud falling onto the floor. "We were flying over the Euphrates corridor, coordinates you assigned. Halfway through, comms went dead, blackout. Then the instruments started spinning. No warning, no radar ping, just static and light, a pulse that fried everything. EMP. "Too clean," she said. "Too controlled." And it didn't just kill the systems. She stopped, searching for the right word. "It erased them. When I came to, there was nothing. No helicopter, no team, no gear. Just sand and glass." The colonel's fingers tapped the table. "You mean you were the only survivor?" "I thought so," she said. "Until I found the tracks." Her voice grew tighter, quieter. "Boot prints. Ours. But they didn't lead anywhere. They just stopped. Like the people walking them vanished mid-step." The colonel felt the room grow colder. "And you followed them?" "I had to." She described days of walking through shifting dunes, following faint marks until she reached what looked like an ancient ruin. A stone circle half buried in the desert, symbols carved into the rock that seemed to shimmer in the heat. "It wasn't on any map," she said. "No satellite should have missed it. But it was there, waiting." "What did you find?" Raven looked down. "A door." The colonel frowned. "A door, under the sand. Massive. Metal, but not like any alloy I've ever seen. Cold, even in the sun. And it was humming. Low, steady, like a heartbeat." He leaned forward. "And you opened it." She didn't answer right away. The silence stretched, filled only by the soft ticking of the wall clock. Then she whispered, "It opened for me." Something about the way she said it made the colonel's skin prickle. "What was inside?" "Darkness," she said simply. "But not empty. There were voices, echoes, like whispers in another language." "I think it was alive, Colonel. The door, or whatever it guarded, it was aware of me. He rubbed his temples. You sound like you're describing a nightmare, she cut in. I know. I thought that too, until I realized the whispers weren't random. They were coordinates. That made him freeze. They led me out, she said. Right before the storm hit, I followed them and somehow I ended up at a checkpoint 300 miles from the crash site. I shouldn't have survived, Colonel, but I did. And when I looked back, there was nothing there. No ruins, no sand circle, like it was never real. The Colonel stared at her, struggling to process. She looked exhausted, thinner than he remembered, but there was clarity in her tone. She believed what she was saying, and if Raven believed it, it demanded attention. Those coordinates, he said finally. Do you still have them? She nodded. Memorized. But you shouldn't go there. Why not? Her eyes met his. Because whatever it was, it followed me back. The Colonel's breath caught. What do you mean? She looked past him, toward the small window that overlooked the base yard. I started seeing things after I escaped, reflections that didn't move with me. Faces in the static when I turned on a radio. And last night, her hand trembled slightly as she spoke. Last night it whispered again. There. What did it say? She hesitated, then said softly, It said my name. The Colonel's stomach turned. He stood up, pacing slowly. This was beyond any after-action report he'd ever handled. If even half of what she said was true, it wasn't just a survival story. It was something else, something they weren't prepared for. Raven, he said quietly, I'm ordering a full debrief. Medical, psych eval, everything. You're in no shape. I'm not crazy, sir, she said, her voice cutting through the air like glass. And I don't need rest. I need to find out what's buried out there before it finds me again. Before he could answer, the lights flickered. Once, twice, then steadied. Raven's eyes snapped to the ceiling. That's how it started last time, she whispered. The Colonel opened his mouth, but then his phone buzzed. He pulled it out. Blank screen. No signal. The digital clock on the wall froze at 13:07. Every electrical hum in the room went silent. Raven stood, breathing fast. It's here. Who's here? She turned to him slowly, eyes wide with a terror that made his spine lock. The one that opened the door. And just as she said it, the lights went out completely. The blackout swallowed everything. One moment the room was filled with the cold glare of fluorescent light. The next, pure darkness. A low hum crawled through the air like a living thing. Faint but steady, vibrating through the floor, through their bones. Stay still, the Colonel whispered, instinctively reaching for the sidearm at his belt. Raven didn't move. She stood motionless, head tilted slightly, listening. There was something else beneath the hum now, a whispering, soft and layered, like a dozen voices speaking at once from behind the walls. The Colonel flicked on his flashlight. The beam cut across the room, landing on her face, pale, streaked with grime, her pupils wide. The whispering stopped. Generators out, he muttered. Probably a surge. Raven's lips parted. No, it's not the power. Then something clicked in the dark corner of the room, a metallic, deliberate sound. The Colonel swung the beam toward it. Nothing, just a blank concrete wall. He swallowed hard. Who else is in the building? Raven didn't answer. Instead, she stepped forward, eyes fixed on the wall. It's following the frequency, she murmured. The one that opened the door. Raven, stand down. But she ignored him, reaching slowly toward the wall with her trembling hand. Before the Colonel could stop her, the flashlight flickered, and for a split second, the concrete rippled, not cracked, not moved, rippled, like the surface of a lake. He froze. The beam dimmed again, sputtering. When it steadied, the wall was just a wall. Raven turned back, her voice barely a whisper. "It's real, Colonel. I told you. It's here." He tightened his grip on the flashlight, forcing calm into his voice. "We're leaving. Now." But as they headed for the door, it slammed shut with a deafening bang. The metal handle twisted under its own weight, locking. The colonel pounded on it, cursing, then turned back. Raven was standing still again. Too still. Her eyes were open, but her expression had gone blank. "Raven?" No answer. He stepped closer, touching her shoulder, and she flinched violently, grabbing his wrist with a strength that didn't seem human. "Don't touch me," she hissed. He yanked free, stepping back. "What the hell is happening to you?" Her breathing was ragged now. "It's inside the static. It found a signal. I can hear it. It's trying to get through." "Get through what?" "Me." A long, high tone rang through the air, like the ringing in your ears after an explosion. The colonel dropped the flashlight, clutching his head. The sound grew sharper, vibrating the windows. Papers blew off the table as a gust of cold air swirled through the room. Raven fell to her knees, screaming, hands over her ears. "Make it stop." Then, as suddenly as it began, silence. The flashlight rolled to a stop against the wall. The colonel caught his breath, ears ringing. "Raven, talk to me." Slowly, she lifted her head. Her voice was low, calm, wrong. "You shouldn't have opened the door, Colonel." He froze. "What did you just say?" Her eyes lifted toward him. Only now, they weren't her eyes. The pupils had gone pitch black, swallowing the color completely. "It doesn't like being trapped," she said. "You tried to bury it, but it remembers." He took a step back. "Raven, listen to me. You're not making sense." "It was never supposed to wake," she whispered. "But they used the signal again. You used it." "Who used what?" he demanded. She blinked slowly, head tilting. "The project." The word hit him like a punch. Project Echo. Classified. Shut down 3 years ago after a catastrophic failure in signal mapping tech that supposedly fried 3 satellite networks. Only a handful of people knew about it, and Raven wasn't one of them. "How do you know about that?" he said quietly. Her voice layered now, 2 tones speaking together. "Because you called it back." The colonel's breath caught in his throat. "I didn't." "Yes," she said. "You did. The frequency in your comms. The pulse pattern you used to locate me. That's how it found you." He felt the blood drain from his face. "The recall beacon. They'd sent it out after her chopper vanished. An encoded sonar pulse meant to triangulate her location. But what if it wasn't just a signal? What if the thing she'd found recognized it?" The floor vibrated softly underfoot. The hum returned, louder now, coming from everywhere and nowhere. The lights flickered again, only this time, the glow wasn't white. It was blue, cold and shimmering, spreading like veins of light through the walls. Raven stood, her voice trembling. "It's opening again." The colonel grabbed her arm. "We're getting out. Move!" They slammed against the locked door together once, twice, until the hinges gave way and the metal burst open. They stumbled into the hallway, gasping, alarms blaring through the facility. Red lights flashed overhead, but the deeper hum kept pulsing underneath everything, steady and alive. "Where's the nearest exit?" she shouted. "Down the south corridor." He grabbed her wrist, pulling her along. Soldiers were already running past them, confusion in their eyes. "Power surge," someone yelled. "All systems are looping." They reached the blast doors at the far end of the hall and froze. On the other side of the thick glass, the courtyard wasn't empty anymore. The air outside shimmered like a heat wave, the sand from the nearby field twisting upward in spirals. Shapes moved within it, faint flickering like shadows of people that didn't exist. Raven pressed a hand to the glass. "They followed me," she whispered. The colonel's voice was low. "What are they?" "Not people." Her breath fogged the glass. Echoes. One of the shapes turned, and for a split second it had her face. The colonel yanked her back, heart pounding. "We need to seal the base." "Won't matter," she said. "It's already inside." And then every speaker in the facility crackled to life. The intercom hissed, and from it came a sound that froze them both. Her voice. Raven's. "Raven, report your position," it said in a calm, military tone. "This is command. We're reading your beacon signal. Respond." Raven's eyes widened. "That's me." The colonel turned to her. "They're reactivating your old frequency." Her hands shook. "They're calling it again." The intercom voice repeated, more distorted this time. "Respond, Raven. Coordinates locked. We are opening." The last word broke apart, twisting into a long, guttural tone that made the lights explode overhead. The walls shook violently. Somewhere deep in the facility, metal tore. The colonel grabbed Raven and pulled her into a maintenance tunnel as the corridor collapsed behind them. Dust filled the air. The emergency lights flickered red. They crawled forward, coughing, until they reached the far hatch that led outside the perimeter fence. When the colonel forced it open, night air hit them, cool and quiet. For a moment, it was just wind and silence. Then, from the distance came a faint rumble like thunder rolling underground. Raven stood slowly, staring at the horizon. "It's awake now," she said. The colonel turned to her, breathing hard. "What does it want?" She didn't look at him. "To finish what we started." Behind them, the base lights flickered again. A pulse of blue light shot up from the command tower straight into the sky. The ground trembled. "Raven," he said, stepping closer. "We have to stop it." She finally looked at him, but her expression was distant, her voice soft. "You can't stop what you don't understand, sir. You can only follow it back." "Back where?" She smiled faintly, and it wasn't her smile. "Home." Before he could react, the pulse flared, blinding white, swallowing everything in its glow. When he opened his eyes, the night was gone. The sky above was gray and endless, the desert stretching in every direction. No base, no fence, no sound, just sand. He turned, and she was gone. Only a single set of footprints trailed behind him, leading nowhere. The colonel fell to his knees, staring at the horizon where the light had been. He reached for his comm, but there was no signal. Just static. Then, through the static, her voice whispered one last time, calm, familiar, and infinite. "Raven out," and the line went dead. In the end, they'd tried to reach where no one was meant to go, searching for truth in the static of their own making. Some doors, once opened, never close. They just wait for someone else to listen.